Chapter 5, we head into our finance chapter. There are going to be a lot of formulas in this unit, but never fear. You have a finance formula chart that you can print, and these formulas will be provided on your test. So if you'll print this out, you can make notes on your copy, you can use it every time you're doing homework so that you get used to seeing the formulas, and then you won't be able to use your copy on the test, but you will be provided a copy that has the formula in the same order for the test. Okay, so simple interest formula, starting nice and easy. This is a lot of calculator math, really. The way this text presents the simple interest formula is interest equals PV times R times T. So I teach finance in a different class, and that book just says PRT instead of PVRT. Here, obviously, I is for interest, our simple interest. That's what we're solving for. PV is what we are referring to as present value. When I teach this in our other class, this is our principal. So if you are investing and earning interest, this is the money you invest. If you are borrowing and being charged interest, this is the amount of money you're borrowing. That's our principal, our present value, what we start with. And then R is rate. When you use rate, you use it as a decimal. Even though when you're given an interest rate, it's given to you as a percent. And unless you're told differently, you're going to assume it's an annual rate. I believe this book focuses on annual rates. It may have some monthly rates. Whatever term your rate is in, the T, the time, needs to be in the same units. The T stands for time or term of investment. And again, we are going to assume, unless told differently, that this is years, and it has to match the units of the rate. So if for some reason you were given a monthly rate, time would be in months. But we are always going to make the assumption, unless we're told differently, that we are given an annual rate and need to present our time in units of years. Okay, let's put this formula to work. We're going to find the interest. If we need to round, we'll round to the nearest cent if we're solving for money, interest or principal value, and to the nearest tenth if we're finding a percentage. So the nearest tenth of a percent if the percentage or the rate is our unknown. So we are going to invest $400 at 7% for 3 years. So always start by writing your formula. I equals PV times R times T. This helps you keep track of what you know and what you're looking for. 400 is our present value. It's what we're investing. Our rate is 7%, which is 7% out of 100%. If you need to help use your calculator to help you make sure you get the decimal in the right place, this is what you're going to put into the calculator. 7 divided by 100, which gives you 0.07 as our decimal version of the rate. And then 3 is already in years, so T is 3. Multiply this out. 400 times 0.07 times 3 gives you $84 worth of interest over 3 years. Now what if I was also asked to find the total in the account? Let's add total principal and interest. The total in the account at the end of the term would be our principal and our interest. Well, we invested $400, we earned $84 in the interest, so our total is $484. All right, next one, we're going to invest $600 at 6.3% for 2 months. So again, we're solving for interest. Our present value is 600. Our rate, 6.3% out of 100%. I moved that decimal 2 places back to the left. My decimal is 0.063. Ooh, 2 months. How many months are in a year? Because we need our rate we assume is annual, so we need our term in years. Well, there are 12 months in a year, so that's 2 months out of 12, 2/12ths of a year. I could simplify that to be 1/6. What I do not want to do is round it off. If you plug that into your calculator and you say 1 divided by 6, or if you say 2 divided by 12, you get a decimal that it repeats, 1.16, and then 6 repeats forever. If I round that off, I've just changed my result. Do not round that off. So right here I've got my 2/12ths or 1/6. I'm just going to push times 0.063 times my investment of 600, and I get my result. $6. It has to happen. That's just a fluke. There's no relation there. It just happened to come out to $6.30. That's how much interest you're going to earn in just 2 months. Does that make sense? I mean, I earned $84 here, and it was less money, but it was a little bit higher rate. I earned $84. Well, that was 3 years. This is just 2 months. $6.30 of interest over 2 months. So what's the total in the account, or the total owed at the end of those 2 months? The 600 is the present value, or the principal, plus the interest would be $606.30. So this is my principal and interest. If you ever see P&I, principal and interest, that's your total, principal and interest. All right, next I've got a bigger amount, just 5%, 63 days. Well, days. We are going to assume 365 days in a year, unless we're told differently. Now, why would we be told differently? Well, there's what's called a banker's rule. The banker's rule is based on a 12-month year, 12 months of 30 days per month. Gives you 360 days per year for our banker's rule. The other book I teach out of, the other class, it tells you to assume that you're going to use the banker's rule unless told differently. This book, however, tells you to assume 365 days in a year unless told differently. So you have to pay attention to your circumstances. All right. Interest is present value times rate times time. My present value here is $2,100. It's invested at 5%. I need to write that 5% as a decimal for 63 days. Now remember, our rate is an annual rate, so we need to write this in terms of a year. That's 63 days out of 365 because we weren't told to use our banker's rule. And once more, we don't round off until the end. So 63 divided by 365 is irrational. It keeps going. I do not round that off. I multiply it times my rate, times my principal, and that gets me my interest. When I get my interest, this is when I round it off to the nearest penny, because that's the closest denomination of currency that we have. So for this circumstance, principal and interest would be $2,118.12. Okay, let's put this into some applications. Time Warner Cable took out a 30-year bond at 7.3 annual interest. Find the semi-annual interest and then the interest paid over the life of the bond. Semi-annual. Well, what does semi-annual mean? Well, a semicircle would be half a circle. So semi-annual would be half year. So we want the half year interest, and then we want the whole interest that would be paid out over the 30-year investment. A bond is going to be simple interest. So we've got I equals PV times R times T, where present value is the cost, the face value of the bond, $7,500. My rate is an annual rate. We change it to a decimal, 0.073. Our first question, the semi-annual interest, what's my time going to be? Well, half a year is going to be 1/2 or 0.5 for semi-annual. So the half-year interest is going to be, if you plug it into your calculator, $273.75. That's, again, my semi-annual interest. Well, how can I find the interest over the life of the bond? It's still simple interest. I equals PV times R times T. We start out with the same investment and the same rate. Our time changes now to that 30 years. You plug that into your calculator, you should get $16,425. Now, another way to do that, if I get this much every half year, so let's round that off, 273.75 every half year. How many half years are there in 30 years? There's going to be 60, right? So I would have 60 payments of this. So times 60 gets me to the same value, the $16,425. So what is the total principal and interest at the end of the term of the bond, the 30-year term? Well, I take the cost of the bond plus the total interest, and I get the total value, the P&I, principal and interest value. All right. Next, we are going to look at future value. So we've been focusing on present value, now we're switching to future value. The future value is the maturity value, or the value at the end. Worth at the end of the investment, the amount due at the end of the loan. That's that total, that P&I that we've been finding. So you already know how one way to find that. We've been taking our, one way to find the future value is to take the present value plus the interest. That's what we've been doing so far. Present value plus the interest, and that absolutely works. Another way, though, there's a separate formula for future value. If I replace my simple interest formula, if I plug that in here, that interest formula is PV times R times T, right? So I take out I and I replace it with PV times R times T. Well, now I have two terms and they both share this PV, so I can factor that out. And this is what I'm left with, 1 plus RT. So a second way to find future value would be to multiply the present value times the sum of 1 plus RT. That 1 represents the original investment and then the interest earned. It's just that I have not done it in two separate steps. Here I find the interest and then I add it to the present value. Here I find that future value, that total, all at one go, without splitting it apart. If you look at your formula chart, you can see that you've got that formula right there. So we've got our simple interest formula, and then we've got our total or our future value formula. All right, let's practice using this. Find the future value of a loan of $200 at 5% for 5 months. Now remember, rate and term has to match. We're going to practice using our new formula. If you don't like this formula, you can always go back and find just the interest and then add in the present value. But we're going to practice this new formula. So we're solving for future value. Our loan is $200, so how much are we going to owe at the end of the 5 months? Well, that's going to be 1 plus my percent, 5%, becomes 0.05, and I multiply that times, do I multiply it times 5? Well, now remember, we always assume this is annual rate, so this needs to be years, so this is going to be 5/12. The only tricky thing about this maybe is making sure you get your order of operations right, so making sure you use your calculator correctly. I'm going to start the hard stuff on the inside. Order of operations, you work from the inside out. So I'm going to do 5 divided by 12, not rounded off, times 0.05, because I do that multiplication first, and then I add 1. This is what's inside my parentheses, and I need to multiply that times $200, and then I round to the nearest penny. So I get $204.17 as the future value. This is how much will have to be paid back at the end of that 5 months, $204.17. Does that make sense? Well, we said that we borrowed the present value, or the principal, was $200. So if I need to pay back $204.17, that means my interest is $4.17 after 5 months. Yeah, that's fair. That makes sense. Okay, we've got 3 more. They're all pretty straightforward. Give them a try, pause the video, come back. We are going to be looking at solving for different amounts, different unknowns. For example, we are given a future value. We need to find the present value. We're given time and we're given a rate. Well, we're given a future value, we need to find the present value. Since we're given a future value, we need to use the formula that includes all of those variables. So we're going to use future value, present value times 1 plus RT. And we're going to plug in what we know. We know the future value is $24,000. We are looking for the present value. My rate is 6% or 0.06, and my time, my term, is 11 out of 12 months. So I'm solving for this present value. Well, what am I going to do? I'm going to end up dividing by all of this, right? Look at this. Your formula sheet has a formula. Set equal to find present value when you know future value. You start with this formula, you divide both sides by that 1 plus RT, and it moves it over below the future value. Okay, so let's see what this is. Let's start on the inside. 11 divided by 12 times my rate of 0.06 plus 1 is 1.055. So I've got 24,000 equals present value times 1.055. I divide both sides by that 1.055, and that's going to give me my present value. How much do I borrow if that's what I'm going to end up with? 24,000 at the end. Okay, so here's a nifty thing. I need to divide. In division, I need to start with the numerator, right? So I'm going to key in my numerator, 24,000. Whoops, extra. Oh, shoot. Let me put a decimal 0 in there to make it right. Okay, 24,000. I'm going to say divided by, and then I don't want to key this back in, so I use second answer combination, and it brings that back up for me, and it does all the work. I don't have to make sure that I copy things down correctly. So what I've got here is $22,748.82 as the amount, the amount that would have been loaned to get the future value of 24,000. Okay. How much must Harry's Hardware deposit at 3.5% interest for 210 days in order to earn $500 interest? We're assuming 365 days per year. So he's going to need $500 interest at the end of this 210 days. How much does he have to deposit? How much does he have to invest now at this 3.5%? Well, we're looking for, let's see, how much must he invest now, deposit now? That is present value. We're given a rate, we're given a time, and we're given interest. So I look at my variables, and that's my simple interest formula. Interest equals present value times rate times time. My interest that I need is 500. My present value is what I don't know. My rate would be 0.035. And my time is 210 out of 365 days in a year. So again, I'm going to start here with my ratio. 210 divided by 365 times my rate, 0.035. And I get this long value. Well, what am I going to do with that? I'm going to need to divide both sides by that. So I'm going to need to do 500 divided by all of that. I don't have to recalculate it. I don't have to retype it. I just plug in my 500 divided by, and then I use that second answer combination. And it gives what needs to be invested now to earn $500 interest that quickly. So the present value that Harry needs to, or that business needs to invest now, $24,829.93. If we're going to earn $500 interest that quickly at that rate. Okay, Novelties and Such borrowed $300 for 100 days, and they paid $2.88 in interest. We need to find the rate this time. So let's see what we know and what we need. They borrowed $300. Well, that's present value. That's how much they borrowed. 100 days is my term. There's my interest. Oh, right there. Find the rate. We are looking for R. These are the variables that we're interested in. That's my simple interest formula. I know my interest, 2.88. I know my present value, 300. I don't know my rate. And I know T is 100 days. We always assume for this book that that's out of 365. So again, I'm going to multiply what's on the right side of the equation and then divide the side on the amount on the left by that value. Let's see what that comes out to be. 100 divided by 365. And then I multiply that times 300. And this is the amount that I get that I'm not going to round off. 288 equals 82.19178 times R. So I'm going to divide both sides by that 82.19178. And it's going to give me my rate. Not going to have to re-enter it, not going to round till the end. I plug in my numerator, 2.88, divided by second answer combination. My calculator does the work. That's what I've got. So my rate is 0.03504. My instruction said if I need to round a percentage, I round to the nearest tenth of a percent. I need to think of multiplying that times 100% to move the decimal to the right 2 places. It puts the decimal right there. So 0.03504 is 3.5% interest. That's my rate.